Module 2, Unit 4, Using Databases. In this unit, our objective, guys, is to know what is a database generally. So at the end of this unit, you will be able to describe databases and explain the purpose of the database. What is it for? I mean, what's the use benefit of the database? And then objective is also to list the relational methods used by structured databases, and then list the ways that users and applications that can interface with databases, and then be able to distinguish application architecture models. So, what is a database in general? Probably some of you already have an idea what is a database, and some of them maybe we haven't used the word, but we've been doing every day. So, database actually in general is a record, is a data storage where all the information are high organized in a manner that it can be retrieved, it can be saved, it can be managed and transferred. So simply, it's a highly structured data storage. And then information is recorded in tables to organize it. Like there's a column, merong column dyan, and then fields, taog din sa kanya, fields, and then there are rows, and it is also called to others, to other version probably is as records. So in this screen, for example, this is a display of information taken from a database. So and then this is also a form that is used to create a user, for example, by entering a name and then specifying the authentication method, and then some controls like suspended, or and then to enter a password. This is actually the way, one of the way to create a user database. Then, saan ba ginagamit ng database actually? Where do we use it? No, we use it actually every day. I mean, we use it to create records, create a file to store the information that later on we look back and then check what we have done or what information that we had before. So, and then it is also used to, to import some information coming from another source, whether another application yan, kahit ibang software pa yan, as long as it contains information in an organized fashion, that's a database. That's how its database is being used, either by importing or by inputting manually. And then we store. That's the most in my opinion, that's the most important thing when it comes to database, is the proper storage of information. That's kung saan you can actually easily and conveniently add more information and then process it for analysis, or like reports, or that you can send anywhere, and then you can retrieve, so that for sharing or for printing, or like a report, for example. And then it's for queries actually also, that where you can use the database queries, in a sense that you are actually looking for an information, not only like for example a list of users, not only like a list of grades for if sa school ginagamit, or bank information. It is something like more analytics, like a combination of user and then their information background, and then the financial transaction from another bank combined with other users, ganon. Those are queries that actually signal or initiated to a number of databases to come up with a record na organized in a way na you don't have to copy and paste from different sources. And then when you have queries, then you can make it in a form or a format that can be used a report. No? For example, analytics about a certain location, analytics about some records or customers, sales and marketing, and then, for example, associated with What is this? Some information such as purchases, orderings, and so on. So maraming database is plays a very important and big role when it comes to IT system. So uh, to to illustrate more what is a database, actually there are many kinds of databases. Starting from this, let's compare a database with from flat file systems and a regular database. So yung mga flat file systems, those are actually data in spreadsheets or a simple or a simply plain text. Well, actually, in spreadsheets, you can export it in a CSV, comma separated file, and readable in a text in a text file actually, and then comma separated. Those are the kind of flat file system that contains information, and what you do is just enter it, put more extra line or add additional data fields, and then ganun din the same way when you store it, dagdag lang, nagdadagdag ka, you manually enter, and then all in the same location and the same content. And then meron naman talagang database usually is defined by date columns to specify or to classify as a data in another type, and it also involves validating data entry. And then database can be stored and located on different locations, or created on different tables, and they call it schema. In a text file, isang record lang, isang table lang. But in a database, there is multiple tables that can be queried, or you can retrieve particular information sa particular table lang and come up with a report that you want. And then database support also user management, users that will access, and then it can handle high transaction of information processing that like to record at the same time. Unlike in spreadsheet, yung user is when open by, depende sa sharing and restrict and permissions, either when it's already opened by someone else, you can open it only as a read only. You cannot write anything. And then even if it is configured that you can both write at the same time, it could create problems, or duplicate information or overlapping data that will actually crash the application itself. That's why database is more scalable, meaning it can be expanded, it can be reduced down, it can be increased with multiple data tables to come up with a more organized data. And then another factor about database that it's of course more sophisticated in access control, just like how I explained earlier, that for example for user access, it's simply by sharing the file, and it's not that you can access it really easily, pero hindi siya ganun ka manageable when you are trying to manage the data. So about database structure, in order to understand database, no, we need to know the database structure. Meron tinatawag na relational database management system. Ito yung pag multiple pages or multiple tables ang information, the info within those tables or from different tables can be linked or associated together. Like if you are going to generate a report, the data within that report could be coming from a different sources or different tables, so they are related. Yung kaya tinawag na relational, they are somehow linked from different sources and different tables. And then the language in database usually is SQL. SQL, kung basahin yan, di ba? It stands for Structured Query Language. And those software vendors that has an SQL database software are, of course, from Microsoft, a software giant, and it is called as Microsoft SQL Server. And then Oracle company, they have their own Oracle database. It's also commercial. The same with Microsoft. And then meron din yung open source, MySQL, and then a very simple one. I would say this is a standalone, a Microsoft Office Access. And then when it comes to database, it talks about keys. When we say what they call what's the word primary key, it is a unique identification of a table of a data. It is assigned to it, no, sa when you say, when you trying to well, I would say use or source out with that primary key, it only belongs to that particular data. And then meron din tinatawag na foreign key, which is actually that reference to the primary key but from another table. So when we say database structure involving primary keys and foreign keys, it is known to be a more effective and reliable data storing and technology. And then let's take a look about this this example, a relational database. We have a customer database that meron siyang first name, surname, and then address 1, and then meron din address 2, and then everything, including telephone, age, and of course a customer ID. And then there's another database, book database, na andito yung title, the author, and then the publisher, and control number. So this is the data that you want to come out with. Now you need a book title and its customer ID, and then information like when it was being out or when it's being backed. So this book title come from book database, and then this name come of a customer name. So ito yung tinatawag na relational. This data is relational from book database and customer database. Now, what are the constraints in database? Number one is garbage. Garbage is what they call GIGO, no? It's garbage in and garbage out. This is all about maintenance, data maintenance, that you need to control the information that you store in, and you need to know how long you're gonna stay there, or how much is the capacity that you would like that the system is still fast to retrieve those information. And then yung garbage out naman is like a mechanism that you need to come up with kung hanggang kailan mo i-delete or i-archive or move to another media. So because if you keep all of this information in one location, like it's either you run out of space, but the most critical part is that yung indexing, when you are trying to locate or search in a database na masyado na malaki, mas matagal ang searching. Yun ang ang constraints. So garbage in and garbage out has to be managed accordingly. And then constraints is when you are creating a column fields that has to be unique. When you define a data type, that is very, that's a challenge, that as much as possible hindi redundant ang fields, hindi it should be unique and it should be scalable. So another constraints on database are as I've mentioned, is the uniqueness. The uniqueness of the data of the tables, that pag nag-expand or maraming relational database, it doesn't confuse or it will not produce a conflicting information or reports. And then meron tinatawag na validation rules. This is about confirming each user and the data to be shared or to be displayed. And then meron din mga format rules like fields that cannot be left empty. Because every data field either comma separated or in a different what I'm trying to say is a different field or row or column. May mga constraints na if you left it empty, it will create error when generating a data or generating a report. And then it has to have a correct format, a specific format that is consistent. Like for example, telephone number. The data field, you need to be consistent, like kailangan ba may area code o kailangan ba may international code or just 6 digits ba yan or 7 digits or minsan may mga data fields na we ought to forget na tinatanggap pati characters which should be numbers only, or kung meron naman yung may parenthesis, open parenthesis, those are formats. And then constraints such as default values that even in database, meron din tinatawag na lazy programming or poor programming that kung anong default yun ang ginagamit. So that is actually a bad practice when it comes to database administration or database development. Now, meron din tinatawag na semi-structured or obviously the unstructured database. Now, these kasi yung relational database, these are structured, defined by, di ba, tables and columns with primary keys, with IDs, di ba? And then sa unstructured, ito yung walang tables and columns, just lines, spreadsheets, may lines and columns, but it was on the same file. You're just adding more fields as you increase the data, di ba? Ito yung mga unstructured, hindi relational. It's on the same location, the same file, structured in a sense na when it comes to indexing, it cannot use it. And then data can be extracted by searching only. And indexing is within the content. Unlike sa structural, indexing is between different tables. And then meron ding tinatawag na semi-structured. These are documents, a combination na as a plain document or spreadsheet, but merong links or metadata. Merong link for metadata that represent or that contains values within. So in a database, the document and key value pair databases. Ito yung unstructured or either semi-structured documents where it requires a program with logic to interpret the document type. Ito example na XML. Like for example on the screen on your right, ito yung key and a value pair type of database. So it stores objects without determining anong field, anong row number, anong column number. Just this on this column yung key, nandyan yung keys, and then under the value, ito yung data for these keys. So these are usually yung JavaScript object section. Ito yung JSON tagin din. Now, ito yung also what they call NoSQL. Non-relational as well. It doesn't use the SQL languages. So to define data, there are methods in database. Ito yung tinatawag na data definition language. This contains commands like SQL commands, whether to create, to add, or to modify an existing data or to create a new data structure for the database. And then the common commands for DDL is, for example, of course, to create when you are trying to enter or create a database, or alter table command when you are trying to modify. Those are the SQL commands that you will see, and drop, and then create index. And then sa database, meron din tinatawag na data manipulation methods. This is about inserting a data field with a defined data table, no? Whether or to extract information for viewing. Ito yung tinatawag na query. You're just inquiring from a database. So the common commands in data manipulation is to insert, into, and then the table name itself. Ito yung data itself. And then meron din namang update command and the table name itself. Or to delete within the table. Or delete from table name. So these are the commands that you see, and then for example, retrieving or extracting information, select command, data manipulation command ito. So in database, there are also permissions involved, like an admin account or regular user. So depende sa user, mga control system dyan, whether to write or to read only or to delete. So it doesn't give to everyone. Hindi universal or generic ang control system dyan. And then there are also what they call database owner, that they are the only ones who can do everything from read, write, delete, share. Unlike if you are just a member, it depends to the owner kung anong control or permission i-grant sa'yo, whether to just to and then you can never delete. You can edit, and then you can also just share or copy. You don't have the control, just a member. And then merong rights that needs to be granted with other accounts. So access control pa din yan, user control access pa rin, user access control pa rin yan. All of those are under permissions, constraints in database. So when you are trying to grant the permission, this is an example, a grant permission, and then two, who is the user that you want to grant it, what kind of permission that you want to grant. And then you can also do deny, the same concept, deny permission, and then two, whoever user that you are trying to target to deny. So may mga access methods then in database that needs to be aware, and these are the things that usually the database administrators do. There are direct and manual access. And then, meron naman just to query, extract information for report building. And then, programmatic access, like you create a script, you create a program to generate a report with data extracted from the database. Instead of manually doing it or entering a command, you program all of those. And then, meron naman yung user interface where actually there are buttons where to execute a command, or a fields to enter information, combined with buttons as well, control buttons, so user interface. So there are access methods as well in creating backups and data exporting. It's typical that you need to have duplicates, you need to have copies, because these are data. These are assets actually. So now, about database models, architecture models, this is about how a database is being formed, or this is the framework about a database. Meron tinatawag na one tier. This is just a direct from user and then to the data. A user, that is what commonly is called is a front end. And database, where the data is being saved, yung hosted sa computer, back end. So you will hear front end programming or front end database or back end database. And then meron tinatawag na two-tier. Two-tier is, instead of the same computer, standalone, it involves client and server. A client where the user interface or the applications is being run to retrieve information, to display information, and then to enter an information, and then to enter data. And the server, this is where the back end, this is where the database is centralized usually, and all clients accesses the same server or a combination of server that hosting the same database. Hindi siya on the same computer. And then meron din three-tier. It's a combination of front-end, like a user interface, separate yung database, and then separate yung application itself. It could be a different vendor, or it has a different it is an interface layer between the client and the database. Three-level, three-tier ang architecture niya. And then meron naman, depending on the complexity of the database, meron ding maabot sa n-tier. It depends on the company itself. May mga layer kasi na involving access control or complicated access control, and then securities. Of course, security is very significant yan, lalo na sa data. That's very important. Now, in this unit, the lab activity suggested is you try to practice creating and using a database. Kahit yung standalone lang. One example is the, excuse me, the access. So you don't need to practice create one with the, client server architecture. Just stand alone will be fine. MS Office, nandun kasama na yung access. Those are recommended just to get a grasp of how to create a database, how to manage a database, how to store database. And then in this unit, overall, we learn what is a database. We will be able to describe what kind of database that our system has, your system has, and for what purpose. Saan ba ginagamit yan, and what are the benefits of this? And then we list the relational methods na ginagamit sa structural database. Diba? When we say SQL, no, there are methods being used. And then we use the way that users and applications, how they can interfere with databases. And lastly, we cover how to distinguish application, or what are the application architecture models. I hope this has been informative to you. See you in the next unit.